Did you ever see an old fish tank on YouTube? Did you never see an old fish geek on YouTube? Did you ever see a tank that looks like it's been cycled and crashed a few times? Did you ever see a tank that didn't look like it just got set up in the nick of time? Oh, I just rhymed time with time, but I'm making it up as I go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you are. Welcome back to Easy Reefers. Today, I'm having issues. Come on, Twitch with me. Issues. I'm having, issues with a YouTuber. See, I've seen so many tanks. You're welcome. I mean, so many fish aquariums, reef aquariums, that look like they were set up just to take the videos. Okay. And of course, you see tanks that are set up, and it's fully disclosed what it goes into maintaining them. Like, these are tanks that require a staff of people to maintain them. Okay. But then you have like these YouTubers who basically, obviously, there's a production crew working for these people. There's a maintenance crew working for these people, and they're just like a one-man YouTube band, apparently. I suspect that a lot of these people are actors who are just Googling as they go. Okay? And the reason why is because... Okay. Now, I'm not going to tell you what YouTuber this is. If you see his fucking video, you're probably just going to facepalm if you're just, just even researching into the hobby. If you don't even have a fish tank, if you just research stuff about the hobby, especially about anemones, oh, big facepalm. Just seeing this guy. His tank is a 14-day cycle. And oh no, that's not day 14. That's day 10. Okay. Now, it starts out well but unwise. Okay, he's got live sand. He's got some Pucani. Okay, this is the one type of live rock that's better than Fiji. You can get that from Bulk Reef Supply. I believe Walt Smith probably is the supplier. I don't know. But Pucani is the best as far as surface area goes. The best for a quick cycle by far. Okay. And the best kind of long-term rock you're going to get. Okay, so Fiji, Pucani. Alright, now the Callirpa is my doing. But this is actually live Pucani. And this is what it looks like when it's dead. What makes live Pucani is what's growing inside of it. And if you look underneath the Callirpa, this entire rock is basically infested with sponges. Big purple sponges. Kind of like that purple sponge on the side of that rock. That sponge is spread over here. You can see that? There's a little bit of sponge right there on the side of this rock. Okay? Let's just say, if you want to set up a nano tank and cycle it with some rubble zone and some sand and a little couple of pieces of crappy live rock to mix with the rubble zone, okay, to build a little structure out of to hold your future rock, I would want one of those. Okay, if you can't find a big live sponge rock like I managed to find, dry Pucani. Okay. Then, Maybe one day I can send you some sponges, or maybe you can find a rock with some sponges on them, or maybe you can get, you know, some locally kept or aquaculture sponges. But if the rocks in the tank don't look like that, okay? Not just one rock at a time, I'm talking uniform. The rocks must get uniform in their coralline growth. See, every single freaking rock in my tank looks the same depending on the lighting. See, I got a little algae on these. That's the difference between the live rocks that were ridden with phosphate from this local reef store that I don't know, came with positives and negatives, and the pieces of dry rock that Joey sent me, and the rocks from my old 10-gallon, which I know for a fact that one is. I don't see any other ones, but that's the rock from my old 10-gallon. Good looking rock. In fact, that one that's down there in the quarantine was one from there too. I think that one is. I know that one isn't. And there's one of these kind of rocks that is too.
Misha.
It's just got, like, yeah, that's the one back there.
Misha.
It's got aptasia on it now. But it had, like, bulbous purple coralline algae back when it used to sit closer to a light. I really, I need to fix this other little Chinese light that I had to pull off the quarantine. It would probably work if I plugged it in now that it's dry, but I want to clean it out first. The screws are rusted. They've got a little too much saltwater exposure. Oh, here. Time to wake up the fishies.
Misha.
They've already had their first dose of medication for the morning. Morning, Tatsuki. Good morning, Yumachika. Good morning, Petey. Good morning, Smurfette. Good morning, Mai. Good morning, little Leo. Oh, cute shit. I usually try to do that quicker. He is too stinking cute, man. He's a good looking little fish. As you can see, his health is well improved. But anyways, and speaking of anemone fish, we're back to anemones. Now, I waited long enough to get my anemone, but I never provided enough light. I'm pretty sure because we don't see like a high difference in the lighted areas and the shadows. See, what makes the shadows in this tank isn't the fact that they're dimly lit. I can see them just fine in person. It's the relative lighting that's hitting the top of the tank. Okay, so I have basically a wall of LEDs, like just a ceiling. You know, on the top it's a ceiling, not a wall, dumbass. Okay, so it's a ceiling of LEDs. That's three total LED strips. One Coralife 30-inch Aqualite S, and two 18 to 36 or 24 to 36 inch. So 24 inches actual strip length. Current USA um, Orbit Marine LEDs. Okay, and the reason why I have the styrofoam there is so I can make this little squeaky sound and, you know, do a little dance. No, I have it there because over here we have the controls for this light, and I can't change the stuff on this one without that one doing things. I can't change this one without that one doing things. And yeah, at least this way, when I'm programming this one, you know, I gotta hold the flap up, right? But the only thing that the remote for this guy does is put this one into like cloud mode or some crap, and then I just press resume and it's fine. So I don't need to have styrofoam hanging from this side, thank God. But anyways, so I got just too much shit. There's too much shit. Look at this, just shit everywhere. Anyways, I'm glad I actually mounted this crap properly, unlike my, you know, less important things like power strips. Wait a minute. Okay, I'm done being a moron, just for a little while. So yes, once we're done with the quarantines, I guess is a new goal for getting rearranged power strip stuff. It was going to be after I broke down the roticultures, and then it was going to be, oh yeah, I got a new tank set up, we got the roticultures up, and oh, we got Brocanella. So that didn't happen. But yeah, don't try this at home, kids. That's all I'm saying. It's just, I'm using kindling as a protection device. Kind of like using a tuba as a flotation device. It can be done, but you must be very careful. A tuba will float. You just gotta hold on to it just right. Anyway, I don't know that from personal experience. It's just my imagination going wild to attempt to make you laugh, which I should know better because I'm a moron and I'm gonna move on. Anyways, so you see how this, and then, excuse me, sorry, zoom, it's just me. It's a camera. It's a camera. It's okay. Settle down. It's okay. Anyways, you see how this anemone is kind of shiny? Got a little bit of like chromolescence. Not just the, you know, the luminescent glow, but it's got like almost a shininess to it. Okay? If your anemone starts looking dull, you know, like that, you need to start doing very careful water changes while you fix whatever the hell the deficiency is in your system. And in this case, being that this is a Ritterai, that's a Ritterai. That is a fuck. That is a Ritterai. Like the prized, you shouldn't keep it unless you're an expert anemone, okay? And, you know, it's not that the tank is too small. The tank is too small. But it's not just that there's not enough lighting. There's definitely not enough lighting. But, oh God, the very idea that you could do water changes to compensate for nitrate and nitrite levels in a tank that's less than 6 months old in a way that a Ritterai could tolerate. That video is a couple of weeks old. That anemone is probably already dead. I hope he took it back to the store. Like, it would probably still stress and die in a perfect system after being subjected to that. See, what's going to happen in this system is there hasn't been enough time for the for the dentrifying or nitrifying bacteria to take hold. All there is the bacteria that convert ammonia to nitrite. Okay, he's still in the nitrite spike time. Okay, and nitrite tests are some of the least reliable that there are. Yeah. And I sure as heck would only use them to determine high amounts that were, you know, toxic to fish. Okay. I would make sure I had some sort of guaranteed stability worked into my system. Like you need other corals if you don't have macroalgae. Like, okay, at this point, if I wanted to, I could keep a Ritterei in this tank. Okay, I have enough lighting and I have enough greenery. So the old age of my rocks and the amount and old age of my sand means that all my waste gets processed into nitrates. Okay, a nitrate spike, even a slight one, even a temporary one, especially if you have a successive, say you got a weekly nitrate spike and then you do your water change, and a weekly nitrate spike and then you do your water change, and then your fucking Ritterei is dead. Okay, and your nitrates never got high, but you can literally just do too many water changes and kill a Ritterei. Okay, so let's get down to the different species of anemones and who should be trying to keep them in what tank conditions, in what kind of tank, etc. Now, the only nano-friendly anemone is a small to medium anemone, as I've ordered from saltwaterfish.com. For all I know, the same kind of stuff is available at Live Aquaria and the other websites. But this isn't the kind of anemone that you find in the store typically. It's, you know, as you can see, pretty small. This one has grown significantly because I've been feeding it daily. Now, if it comes in pale, you will need to feed it daily. If not, you will still need to feed it every other day. Because basically, in a small aquarium, you cannot provide sufficient lighting without cooking this tank. Okay, now, if this tank had a heater in it and wasn't connected to my main system here, I would be in a world of hurt without a chill. Just a pipe out and back in. Not metal, just a pipe going out and going back in. Then, you know, just regular pipe. Just going out and going back in. Wear some cold air blue. Say you got an AC vent blows back up down there along the wall or something like that. That's a rig chiller. Now, of course, they have much better prices than they did 20 years ago on aquarium chillers. That was like damn near something that you had to get custom fabricated. And going back 30 years ago, it was custom only. You would sit there and have an ice chest by your fish tank, and you'd have a pipe running through that and a little hose going through there and let it spiral around in the ice chest, and you'd keep, you know, floating a bag of ice in there. And you know that around that time was when everybody was getting their new Kenmore automatic ice tray refrigerator. So you'd go and you'd be like, man, it's the 80s. We got nice technology. We got our saltwater aquarium. Just got a new stack stereo that hooks to my VCR. It provides hi-fi. I don't even know what hi-fi meant. Anyways. Oh. It looks like the Lee's countercurrent protein skimmer has been doing its thing. Speaking of the 80s, It's a flashback. Okay. Anyways, so the main types of anemones that you're going to find in a pet store. Let's see. You got sea bay, Condylactis or Haitian, Atlantic, they're often referred to. Um, you have your bubble tips, rose bubble and green bubble. Uh, there's some different color variations, but it's 4 overall different main types, and I've seen their Zuzandelli actually interspersed between them, so that actually explains the rainbow ones that aren't dyed. Um, but Emancipia quadricolor is the species name, and that's pretty much the easiest one to keep. Okay, but we'll go back to that in a minute. Then you have the Ritteri. Okay. If you're watching this video for anything other than entertainment purposes or just to see what another old fogey thinks, you shouldn't go buy a Ritteri. They've been having them at PetSmart and Petco for years, and they just shouldn't. They just shouldn't. Now, the reason why people like the Ritteri, the reason why people like to sell the Ritteri is because they can say, that is the anemone that the Accelerus, the false percula, like Leo, will go into in the wild. Okay? They can be trained to by the very patient fish keeper, and they have been known to occasionally go into rose bubbles. I think they're hungry. So, the fact that, you know, this is the first aquacultured fish, the most common fish, the cheapest fish, not as hardy, I don't care what anybody says, not as hardy overall as a true percula, but if well kept, have been known to live longer than true perculas. 20 years, 20 plus years. Okay? And that's many of the fish that you'll see in store came from some of the 20-year-old fish that I'm speaking of, that different breeders have. Okay. So for this reason, people like to get anemones before their tanks are ready. And they don't necessarily know where to even put them so that they'll be happy. They don't know how much light is enough light. Well, how much light is a good way to determine whether your tank is ready. Basically, you keep adding light until you get an algae bloom. And when you can get your light up to the recommended levels that you can read online, say, you know, I can look up online that this thing will provide 100 par at 6 inches. Okay? So I need 300 par at 6 inches, I got 3 lights. See? It's that easy. And if I turn that on 100%, that's what I'll have. I don't have it on 100%. But I can turn it on 100% without getting hair algae blooms and shit. It'll just cause this to grow like wildfire. And it grows fast enough. Okay. So anyways. But aside from just making sure your tank is ready, okay? Making sure that it can sustain not button polyps, okay? Button polyps. I got button polyps from the live rock trough with a power head on it, okay? Button polyps can live through anything, and they will open in just minimally okay conditions. They're more concerned about how long it's been since they were moved and whether or not there's light. That's all that makes them open, okay? You need to get, say, a Duncan, some mushrooms, some Montipora. Montipora is a great indicator of whether or not you can even try a rose bubble. Now, getting back to species, just don't, okay? But when it comes to bubble tips, they're considered to be the easiest species, but it's been my experience that actually the rose bubble is the only one that's easy. Something about this pigment variation makes it a little more tolerant to water condition changes. Um, it doesn't, however, like low lighting. So, if you have a really, really stable tank, like say you either have an alarm set on your phone twice a day to do a couple of millimeters of your two-part, or whatever, you have just a rock solid stable system, and not that much lighting, you can probably keep a green bubble. Okay, like 2 currents wouldn't keep it, but a current and a coral life, for some reason they like the spectrum better. That was keeping the green bubble. Where I really went wrong with the green bubble, actually, and as bad as this sucks, is not being able to afford to replace this at the time and moving it over to that 29 gallon. Because they like this light. They just never really seem to like the currents by themselves as much. So keep that in mind if you're trying to set up an anemone tank. Now, the green bubble tip, it likes bright light, but for less of a period of the day. So if you can provide bright enough light over a little bit more of a period of the day that it's used to, it'll go through a cycle where it loses a little zooxanthellae. But as long as, like I said, your alkalinity, and especially your iodine, potassium, iron, calcium, all your manganese, strontium, molybdenum, as long as all those things are kept constant, relatively constant, and you don't, like I said, this is more tolerant to water change conditions. You can't change water rapidly on a green bubble. Okay, and what I'm saying about green bubbles applies to all other anemones, okay, except for giant carpet anemones, and I'll get to them last. When you do a water change, you need to use a heater. You need to make sure the salinity is exact. You don't top off with the water change, like some people like to let their salinity get a little high, and then they just let the, oh, I don't need to increase my top off amount, I don't want to flood, blah, blah, blah. You can't do that with anemones. You probably can't do that with Acropora, so if you can't do it with Acropora, you can't do it with anemones, generally speaking, okay? Now, top off water must have calcwiser or marine buffer or reef builder dissolved in it. It cannot drop the pH. Okay, there can't be just like a constant lull in pH when your lights are off. Okay, day-night refugiums are highly recommended. Speaking of which, it's daytime. But a green bubble tip. So let's get into placement before we get into the other ones, because that's a lot of what differs with the other ones. You see how these guys are perched on the side of the rock, and they got like a little bit of cover of an overhang? All bubble tips love that. But you'll find a green bubble tip will go in this tank probably right about to that little spot. See that indentation right there? Now, this also applies to all anemones, Um, do not put them in your tank. I was gonna grab a toothbrush, but it's over by the sink. Do not put them in your tank without taking a toothbrush and scrubbing the spot that you want to put them on. Um, at the very least, you need to take your finger, if you got fingernails, and do your best to just clear the spot and then fan it away like that, get the detritus off from it. And you want to give them a nice little bald spot right there. Don't clean around it. And then, as long as this is a good spot, see that current right there? I can tell that current is perfect for an anemone to sit right there. See, that's just la la la, and then the little wave comes. Okay? Anemones love that. Rose bubble tips don't like extremely high current the way a Ritterei does. And a Ritterei just likes, a Ritterei likes that. If that were a Ritterei, it would be very happy. Okay, just to be able to sit there and catch food and then be able to release it. I'm catching food and I don't want that piece, I'm gonna let it flow away. Okay? A rose bubble likes a little less current than that. See right where they are? Man, they are happy as can be. They just want that occasional little flutter that doesn't wave their base. Now, a lot of people wind up having rose bubbles in their tanks for many years and having the long, stringy tentacle effect. That's because there's too much current in that tank. Notice those are usually ridden with extra corals. They usually have a lot of live rock in them. That's what's causing that. That's not necessarily a sign of bad health, like that rose bubble isn't going to die, but to me that just doesn't look that good. If you feed it regularly, that's another important part. You can get stringy tentacles from feeding. Basically what they do is they reach their tentacles out for food, okay? So you have current, can deform it over time, and then you have hungry anemone. See that right there? That is not a hungry anemone. That is a happy anemone. Because he gets Rod's food every single day. Okay, and that's why he's growing. If I didn't want him to grow, I'd feed him every other day. That only applies to smaller anemones. Larger anemones can be fed larger pieces of food less frequently. Okay? Now, bleached anemones need to be fed small pieces of food as often as they will take them. And I'm thinking about moving up both of these guys to twice a day. But I really do like the way that guy's recovering from his bleaching. He's just growing back, oozing belly, and becoming this really cool orange color. Anyways. So, let's move on to another slightly less easy to keep, not as difficult as that to keep, but often misplaced anemone, called the sea bay. Okay, now a Clark eye or a sea bay or a tomato clown will go into a sea bay anemone. You will occasionally find that an Accelerus will take to a sea bay anemone, but you will almost never find a true percula. I might have that the other way around. I think I read that. I'm repeating something I read and that I disagreed with it. No, I disagree with that. I think it'd be more likely you'd find a true percula. True perculas are really not that picky about which anemone they go to. You might eventually find them in just about any damn anemone you put in your tank. Okay? Accelerus, they've been known to be really picky, so I doubt what I read there. But anyways, not sure where I read it. On a forum somewhere. But they sounded like they knew what they were talking about. Everybody seemed to believe them. Whatever will I do? So, a sea bay. They like to go in a little sandy spot underneath a big secure rock. Okay? Now, you can have them in the middle of a sand bed if you clear a big hole. Okay, let them sit in the middle of the hole, and then as soon as their foot attaches, just kind of gently brush that sand in around them. Okay, try not to get, like, don't blow it up on and into them. Okay, that can irritate them. But just gently get that sand back around their foot. You want to have it, you know, wide around there so they can get a hold of it without getting a bunch of sand underneath them. And then you just put it right around them. And it won't work with that shallow of a sand bed, but it would work probably just fine with a sand bed about 2 inches deeper. Just a note on sand beds: you want to go 2.5 inches and maximum of 3 inches in some places, or shallower, or you need to go over 5 inches. Okay, so there's like a median territory in sand beds that can actually create harmful deposits. But that's over a long period of time, and it's, you know, a result of poor maintenance and that kind of thing. So just be warned, if you want the extra stability of a semi-deep sand bed, but you can't afford the whole big deep sand bed, or you don't have a big enough tank for it, just make sure you take some chopsticks and stir it around. So anyways, look, Goniaporus, you're doing all right. Looks like it's growing. Yeah, look at that. Got another little polyp on there. Cool. Acan. It's being an acan. I guess it can't it? I'm still not too sure about this thing. It's encrusting on the base, but I don't see polyps yet. Oh well. So, your Ritterai, your sea bay anemone, it needs that secure feeling, okay? And if it's got to work its way in there while it's acclimating, it can stress and not last a very long time, okay? If it has to work its way in somewhere and has trouble getting the right light, which it's going to need a lot of it, a lot, at the same time feeling secure, it's going to stress out and die. But if you can put it in a spot with a deep, at least 2 inches of sand, right in the middle of where your light's coming down, if you got, you know, much better lighting than I have on this. This is not a highlight system. I don't need highlight on it. He will do just fine as long as he can get that secure place without expending energy as he's acclimating. Okay? Secure place with the light. Okay? And that's what this angle is about too. The reason why bubble tips are healthier, back to bubble tips right quick. The reason why bubble tips are healthier and healthier looking like this. You know, if something looks healthy, it generally is healthy. Well, that's the same right here. When a bubble tip is well fed and when it's not being blasted by current and it's getting enough light, etc., all right, you might notice it doesn't bubble up so much on the bottom as it does the top. See, what it's doing is it's regulating its photosynthesis. So it's letting in just the amount of light that it wants. Savvy? Now, most of the photosynthesis takes place on the disc. Some of it takes place on the polyps themselves, on the tentacles themselves. So those polyps right there, excuse me, the tentacles are both performing extra photosynthesis by swelling up towards the light and also regulating the different colors. See how there's a different color of zooxanthellae? Different chromatophores, different colors, different zooxanthellae. There's red and there's green. And there's bleached. There's also brown. Most of the brown is in there where you see the green color. And that's the zooxanthellae that does the most work. Okay, so it's sitting there doing a little bit of work with those. But what it needs to do is regulate and get nice, even light in just the right spectrum, just the right intensity. And you can find sometimes that if you got too much light, those bulbs will all be closely knit together. Right now, they're both spread apart and bubbled up a little bit. So it's basically just enjoying the light. Now, if the base were stretched up, see the way this base is stretched up? Well, get out of the way, Zoom. Anyways, he's leaning up against it. That's the base right there. And it's stretched up like a vase. Okay, if the base looks like a vase, then it's actually struggling to get enough light. So this one's still going to be doing that until it grows more zooxanthellae. Okay, but it's getting enough light now. It wasn't getting enough light before. That's why it bleached. But now that I got 3 strips on there and the temperature low, we're good. So, the seabay, about as difficult as the green bubble tip. Rose bubble tip, the only thing that you could even come close to considering a beginner anemone. And that's if you paid a lot of money for your setup and it just runs flawlessly. And has been running flawlessly for at least 6 months. And, you know, if you don't have a par meter and you're an amateur, don't get an anemone. If a par meter is too much, just please don't kill the anemone. Because it's really hard to tell as an amateur. Like, you know, I've been doing this since the 80s, and, you know, I've killed a lot of anemones, I'll admit. But at this point in the hobby, at this point in the overall knowledge field that's available to people, it needs to be reserved to experts and people doing experiments and stuff like that. If you lose an anemone today, it should be due to some catastrophe, you know. But anyways, so another anemone that you might see in a reef shop is called the Haitian or Atlantic or Condylactis anemone. Now, let me tell you, if you have a maroon clownfish, maybe a Mai Tai, that's really big in a predator tank, or a fowler tank, you know, semi-aggressive tank, a Condylactis might be appropriate. If and only if you have an ass ton of lighting. They probably need as much lighting as a Ritterite. They certainly need more than a rose bubble or a seabay. They need as much as a giant carpet anemone. For sure. Now, the thing about a Condylactis anemone is non-scaled fish can get pulled in by it pretty easily. Okay? As opposed to a carpet anemone, any fish can get pulled into it by it. Just no problem. And, oh, you come here, you are got. Just a few tentacles is all you need to touch, and a carpet anemone will fuck that fish up. Sorry. Now, I'm not working with any kind of script here, so sorry I'm kind of bouncing around here. I don't just Google stuff and repeat it. So how many anemones have we gone through now? We got the bubble tips. We've got the Ritterize. I'll talk about placement and stuff for them later. Ritterize, bubble tips, Condylactus, sea bays, rock flower anemones. I actually don't have much experience with. They seem to do well in stable nano tanks, similar to conditions that you might find a small rose bubble in. But from what I'm gathering, they're not as carnivorous, and they can be kept mostly photosynthetically. The guy from Reef Builders has a wonderful, beautiful collection. If you want to see a nice collection of rock flower anemones, go check his out. If anybody's thinking of a different type of anemone that they're curious about, say so in the comments now. So, a maroon wouldn't be found in a Condylactus in the wild. They have been seen numerous times in captivity hosting Condylactus anemones. And, you know, it's kind of an ideal match, considering that condies are, generally speaking, really cheap and often had very, very large. And if fed regularly, can grow. As you know, as long as you got sufficient lighting. You don't want to get one that's bleached or have it bleached. It'll eventually just start to do this. It'll be like a little bunny foo-foo and just kind of move around behind your caves and shit, and then eventually you'll stop seeing it. Back when I was a teenager, many moons ago, you'd go and find 3 for $20 on Condylactus anemones at PetSmart. And yeah, I went and I got 3 of them. And, oh, what did I have? A couple of fluorescent bulbs. It was sad. So I got to learn how those died. But eventually I got my 5 lighting strips, and I guess we'll go ahead and do Ritterize now. I got my 5. I put 5 bulbs across a 9-gallon, and I had a similar setup to this on the right side. I had a giant fucking piece of live rock that was taller than this, and it came all the way up to the top of the tank. And I went and I got that damn Ritterize for my 3 clownfish because I loved them, and they were cute, and they were a Celerus. And the Ritterize was the only. Why is the Ritterize the only one that can take? And that's why I breed true Perculus, so more people can have fish that don't really give a crap about anything. True Perculas don't give a. That's what makes them true Perculus. You want to know the difference between a true Percula and a false Percula? No fucks given. That's the difference. So, anyways, I went and got my 5 fluorescent lights. I had 2 that were kind of jerry-rigged from strips, 2 that were ballast that I bought, and 1 that was from a ballast that I took out. No, I didn't take it out. I just mounted the whole fucking thing sideways up in there. I can't even remember. I've done rigged so many different lighting setups. But this 29-gallon in the mid-90s, okay, I had probably about 2 years worth of unadulterated hair algae. I had Caulerpa galore. I had no coral. I had feather dusters that had came in on the Caulerpa. I had some mushrooms, maybe some star polyps. So that's, to me, that's no coral. That's a Fowler tank, you know, like this, okay? But I'm talking tap water, you know. No, there were no RODI systems, so all the rocks look like that. Okay, imagine that. All the rocks were just a mix of that and that, just like that little area right. Oh, that's perfect. See, the hair algae and the caulerpa just fucking mixed together all over the rocks. Okay, and I had the sun grow bulb on the back, and I used to take a little piece of plastic, one of the little cuttings that you get from this here, and I would go and I would just scrape the algae out of there, and that was my algae scrubber. Come behind it with a net, right? And I put a Rittereye in there, and I kept it for a while. And in fact, you know, I might have had it longer if my 20-gallon tall didn't crack and I didn't have to put my Picasso trigger in that fucking tank. But, you know, big no-no, okay? That tank was too small. Really wasn't enough light. The fact that I had it all the way up at the light ahead of time was the only reason why it ever opened up for me, you know? But what made it kind of work I had caulerpa, sponges, feather dusters, shit galore that had been on some of those rocks in my dad's tank, some of them rocks in my 10-gallon that I had before that, and just been left alone. You know, it just sat there and got left alone for years. And I think I added the condies about a year and a half into it, and it was probably 2.5 years, maybe 2 years, but about 2 years, probably a little more, before I got a Rittereye at all. And really, you know, even if it liked that spot with the lighting, I was never going to keep that Rittereye alive because I had to do frequent water changes. Now, speaking of water changes, let me get to the last anemone. The last anemone is the giant carpet anemone. Don't get the little saddle anemones. They just don't do anything but kill fish. If you're okay with that, you know, have at it. They're very hypersensitive, just like a sea bay, basically. Need a lot of light. I mean, a lot of light. And the reason why is because, just like a gigantic anemone, they live in tide pools. Or actually in really shallow areas. The gigantic anemone, carpet anemones are the ones that live in tide pools. And they actually enjoy water changes. They enjoy it when you, like, just let the salinity get way the hell high, and then just splash the sump off with a bunch of fresh water, and then just fresh water just kind of is pouring in there. It's like it rained, okay? But other than that, it has to be an SPS capable system. It has to be, you know, all of the chemical and the toxin parameters have to be kept rock solid. But, you know, this one can tolerate a little bit more variation in chemicals and not nearly as much change in salinity and temperature, okay? Also, it doesn't like changing in lighting conditions. None of them like changing in lighting conditions. But the gigantic carpet anemone, it is crazy. Rod of Rod's Food himself is the one who told me how he keeps them. And he goes and just he heats it up ahead of time. Okay, it's got to be warmed up ahead of time. Got to have the pH buffer in it. Right. Just dumps a fucking bucket of fresh water in the tank with the carpet anemones. Ain't that something? So anyways, thanks for watching, y'all. Hope you found this informative. And happy reefing, everyone. Please find a reef restoration or reef building or coastal restoration charity and support it, even if all you can do is share their links on your social media. And I'd appreciate it if you shared this link to my video. Y'all have a good day. Don't forget to click the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I hear it helps to click the dingy notification bell, but I'm not too sure about that. What do you think, Bubbles? Bubbles don't care. Peace, y'all.